So as we begin our study of the Civil War, the first thing we're going to look at is slavery the cause of the Civil War? This is an important question. It's sometimes hotly debated, although less so now than it was in previous decades. And the simple answer is yes, slavery is the cause of the Civil War. Now, the more thorough answer goes into, what do we really mean by that? So the more complete answer is yes, but let's clarify what we mean. So did enough Americans, so one question is, well, did Americans just decide that slavery was wrong, and so therefore we need to end slavery, and other people were like, no, we're going to keep it, and so a war breaks out? No, that is not what happened. That would be kind of like there's this uprising, this groundswell of support for the abolitionists and against slavery, and people decided we've got to get rid of slavery, and therefore we're fighting to end slavery, and that did not happen. Now, there was a groundswell of support for the abolitionist movement, but it does not ultimately lead to the fighting. Now, that is a part of the story, though. So, how was slavery the cause? Well, it was more, so it wasn't like it was the moral cause, at least not initially. It was more of it's an economic and a political, the economics and the politics of slavery lead to more and more conflict that ultimately leads to civil war. So Southern states wanted to assert or retain as much power in their state as possible. And one of the reasons that they wanted to do that was because they were worried about protecting slavery. They saw that slavery was becoming, and the slavery was becoming less popular. The abolition of slavery was becoming more popular, and they saw that the land that was available to Southern states was kind of slow, was not growing as fast as the Northern states. And so there was this fear that we're going to lose the ability to have slavery. And so therefore, as the nation expands and people move west, Southern states develop a strategy that this idea that they've got to expand slavery into some of these territories out west, especially those that are more along the southern half of the United States. That's their effort. That's what they want to do. But we've got to recognize slavery is also an economic activity where where labor takes place and how labor takes place. And so in the southwestern United States, plantations are not likely to be very profitable. And so slavery you don't have a lot of people hurrying to move out to the deserts of the Southwest to grow cotton. And so it's going to be a difficult task for the Southern states. So this leads to, as the Southern states are trying to expand so that they don't get hemmed in by free states surrounding them, and therefore more free states ultimately they would recognize, well, we now have the political power to end slavery. And so Southern states recognize that, and they are very fearful. And then finally, what we have, let me just double check here and we get past a minute. So Southern states want to keep slavery. They see this groundswell of opposition to slavery. Men like John Brown, who are very, very much, he was an example of that moral anger over slavery. Frederick Douglass, there's a groundswell of people that are beginning to fight against slavery. And there is this fear that the Southern states are going to lose the ability to have their slaves, as they see. And so, because of that, as the United States expands, we start to see more and more compromises being necessary. See the Compromise of 1850, the Kansas-Nebraska Act. And we see that this is causing conflict. New territory coming in, the fight over whether it will be slave or free causes more political conflict. And then we have the election of Abraham Lincoln, a Republican, a new Republican Party. Lincoln is elected, and he gets absolutely no no votes in the Southern states in the Electoral College. Well, that shows the Southern states, hey, they've lost their ability to influence how things are going to go, or they've lost so much of their ability to influence that they see in their minds the writing on the wall. Even though Abraham Lincoln says he doesn't believe he has the power to end slavery, they say, well, it's just a matter of time. And so they see this happening, and with his election, states begin to secede. Notice that's not actually war yet. the southern states begin to secede. Why are they beginning to secede? Because they want to protect slavery. Now, there may have been other things that they were concerned about as well. States' rights often comes up, but the big part of this issue of states' rights is that right to determine whether they could keep slaves or not, they wanted to make sure was part of the southern states. So even the issue of states' rights, while it's not only an issue of slavery throughout history, at this time, the primary reason they're concerned about this issue of states' rights is to protect slavery. The reason southern states said they want to secede from the Union was to protect slavery. And that is in their documents that they created explaining their reasoning for seceding. Document after document in these southern states explains their goal is to secede. Their goal in seceding from the Union was to protect slavery. So now, does that cause the war? Well, in a sense it does, because the Union, the northern states say, no, you do not have the right to secede from the Union. If you're going to try to leave the Union, we're going to forcefully make you stay. And so this is how and what we mean when we say that slavery causes the war, in that the southern states secede to protect slavery, and the Union says, the North says, you don't have the right to leave. Once you are part of the United States, you can't decide you're going to not be part of the United States. So that is how slavery, that is why we say slavery is the cause of the Civil War.